Say the words French Polynesia to anyone, and they picture the same postcard. A wooden bungalow floating over glass-clear water. A drink in hand. Total silence. Here's what the postcard leaves out. To get here from where we live, we fly through Kuala Lumpur, then Auckland, then Tahiti, and only then do we get on one more plane to reach Bora Bora. Somewhere around hour 28, we stop counting, and then we arrive. And it turns out that nothing about this place works the way you think it will. The sharks don't behave like sharks. The stingrays don't behave like stingrays. The most spectacular meal of the trip happens at a picnic table, sitting in the middle of the ocean. And this entire paradise, scattered across a stretch of the South Pacific, larger than Western Europe, is officially, legally, administratively France. We spend 2 weeks in the Society Islands finding all of that out. We don't live anywhere near the Pacific. Home is the Black Sea coast in Burgas, Bulgaria. About as far from a coconut palm as you can get. So for us, this isn't a flight to paradise. It's an expedition. It starts with a 4-hour drive just to reach an airport. From there, Sofia to Istanbul, a layover, watching gates change on a departure board.
If you're over 65, you can take the cart. You sign up for it right by the business lounge.
Then the big one. 11 hours across the entire width of Asia to Kuala Lumpur. Another layover. A long leg, 11 hours south to Auckland, New Zealand. Where we land in the middle of their winter. Gray skies and all. Half a world removed from the beach we're chasing. And finally, one last flight. 5.5 hours, crossing the international date line, before Tahiti finally appears in the window. A green smudge rising out of an ocean that, at this point, feels endless. Add it up, and you're traveling for more than 30 hours, door to door. That's not a flight number you casually mention at dinner. That's a number that changes how you plan the entire trip before you've even left your driveway. Here's the part nobody explains about a trip like this. Once you're crossing that many time zones, stacking that many long-haul legs back to back, how you fly stops being about comfort. It becomes about physical recovery. We flew business class on the long hauls. We're going to be honest about what that means. It's expensive. On a trip this long, from this far away, it added significantly to the cost. It was not a casual decision, but here's the calculation we made. In economy, upright, cramped, fighting for sleep in a middle seat for 22 hours across half the globe, you land and you don't recover for days. You spend your entire first week on a tropical island, walking around in a jet-lagged fog, wondering why you bothered leaving home. Lying flat for those long-haul stretches, actually sleeping through them instead of just enduring them, meant we stepped off that last flight already functioning, ready to explore the second we landed. Instead of needing 3 days horizontal just to catch up to our own bodies. French Polynesia is not a cheap destination. The flights are long and expensive, regardless of how you fly. If you're already spending what it costs to get here and stay here. The question worth asking yourself before you book is, what is this trip actually worth to you? We made our call. You'll make yours. And what we find the moment we walk out of that terminal has nothing to do with what we expected. Everyone assumes that landing in French Polynesia means stepping straight into paradise. Empty lagoon, silence, Bora Bora on day one. Instead, you walk out of the terminal in
Papete.
into rush hour traffic. Commercial cranes unloading shipping containers in the harbor. Modern supermarkets with full parking lots. Blocks of government office buildings. It feels less like a remote Pacific outpost and more like a busy port city somewhere on the Mediterranean. Almost every tourist who lands here treats Tahiti as an inconvenience. Somewhere to grab your bags, sprint to the domestic terminal, and get out as fast as possible, on to the real islands. Most visitors spend less than a day in the city before they're gone. But skip Tahiti entirely, and you skip the one thing that actually explains everything else you're about to see. Why are these roads paved to European standards, thousands of miles from Europe? Why is the hospital here modern, the internet fast? Because French Polynesia isn't an island nation fending for itself. It's part of France. While other island nations scattered across this ocean survive almost entirely on tourism or fishing, these islands run on a completely different economy. Paris pays for it. The teachers standing in front of classrooms, the doctors in the clinics, the engineers who built the roads we're driving on. Many of them draw a salary directly from the French government. Public employees even receive an extra bonus specifically for living this far from home. Every person born here holds a French passport. They're European Union citizens who can move to Paris or Madrid or Berlin without ever filling out a visa application. And when you ask most locals how they feel about that arrangement, you don't find people itching to break away. They understand exactly what sits on the other end of that relationship. A financial lifeline stretching nearly 10,000 miles back to Europe. Cut that line, and life on these islands gets harder and considerably more expensive almost overnight. So Tahiti is the engine room. It's the hub that keeps the entire island chain fed, supplied, and running. You feel that most clearly at the market in downtown. One question follows naturally. Where do the people who actually live in that busy city go when they want to switch off for the weekend? For that, you don't fly, you take the ferry. Moorea sits just 11 miles across the water from Tahiti, close enough that you can see its jagged skyline from the Papete waterfront before you've even boarded the boat. The crossing takes under an hour, but it feels like stepping between two completely different registers of the same country, the noise and traffic of Papete behind you. And ahead, a silhouette of volcanic peaks that looks almost too sharp and too green to be real. We take the ferry over and check into a hotel right on Cook's Bay at the foot of the island's volcanic mountains. And this is where French Polynesia finally starts to look like the picture in your head. Is what's called a high island, sharp green ridgelines, deep bays cutting into the coastline, dense rainforest climbing straight up from the shore. The whole thing wrapped in a protective coral reef sitting just offshore. Sit on the dock at Cook's Bay for 5 minutes and you'll notice something. Almost everyone around you is speaking French. Unlike Hawaii or the Caribbean, where the crowd skews heavily North American, the visitors here are overwhelmingly European. French tourists on holiday, and French expats who came out for work years ago and simply never went home. It creates a strange, specific atmosphere. South Pacific island life, running on European rhythm and routine. Drive around the island for an afternoon, and that same French influence shows up in the fields. grows most of the pineapple and tropical fruit that ends up on French Polynesian tables. And roadside stands sell both straight off the truck, pineapple sliced open on the spot, juice pressed while you wait. It's a working island, not just a resort backdrop. But if you actually want to understand, don't look at the hotel pool and don't look at the pineapple stands either. Look at what happens on a Saturday. We plan an afternoon out on a shallow sandbar in the lagoon, expecting exactly what the brochures promise. Isolation, an empty stretch of turquoise, nobody around for miles in any direction. Instead, we sail straight into the middle of weekend rush hour. Because on a Saturday, that sandbar isn't a tourist attraction. It's packed with locals. Families from Papete do exactly what city dwellers do everywhere else in the world on a weekend. They get out of town. They load the ferry with coolers, folding chairs, kids, and head out to stand waist deep in the lagoon for the afternoon. Grilling, drinking, catching up with neighbors. Watching the kids splash around in water barely up to their chests. This isn't a hotel pool, roped off and built for tourists. This is the neighborhood park. This is where Papete comes to breathe on a Saturday afternoon. And the locals are not out there alone. Southern stingrays glide in from the deeper channels the moment a boat drops anchor. The sound of an engine works like a dinner bell. Decades of boat captains feeding them scraps out here have trained the animals to expect it. They swim right up against your legs, brushing past almost like a cat weaving figure eights around your ankles, looking for attention. You can reach down and touch them. And cruising just behind the rays, black-tipped reef sharks. A dozen of them at once, circling, slate gray shapes cutting slow loops through waist-deep water. The first time you see that many fins moving around you, your heart rate spikes. That's just instinct. You can't help it. But within a couple of minutes, the feeling disappears completely. Because you realize something important, you don't register to them as anything interesting. You're not prey. You're a slow, clumsy obstacle that occasionally happens to drop food. In most parts of the world, if a shark swims toward a crowd of people standing in the water, everyone scrambles for the beach. Here, nobody even pauses the conversation. From Moorea, we take a short flight to the island everyone already knows the name of, even if they've never come within 10,000 miles of it. Bora Bora. No island on Earth is marketed harder as the ultimate romantic escape. An entire industry built around one idea, sleeping directly above the lagoon. The airport sits on its own tiny island out on the reef. From there, a boat transfer straight across the lagoon. The water shifting color every 100 yards, deep navy fading into pale turquoise, until we pull up at Bora Bora Resort. And here's where we make a call that goes against nearly every piece of advice you'll read about this island. We skip the Overwater bungalow entirely. To a first-time visitor, that sounds close to insane. You fly 30 hours to reach the most photographed lagoon on the planet, and you choose not to sleep above it? Here's why. Overwater bungalows sit fully exposed on long wooden piers. Open lagoon wind with nowhere to hide from it. Neighbors right across the water with a clear view into your living room. And all night long, the ocean slapping against the wooden pilings underneath you. Our garden bungalow, by comparison, opens at the back onto a completely private fenced patio. Our own pool, our own sitting area under a thatched roof, surrounded by tropical trees and flowering plants. Wind protected, genuinely quiet, genuinely private. Same resort. Same pools, same beaches, same restaurants, same staff. Just a quieter place to sleep at the end of the day. And a noticeably smaller bill. Sometimes the smartest way to experience a famous destination is to ignore the version everyone insists you have to book. Our first full day, we embark on a full-day boat excursion. The first stop takes us outside the reef into the deep channel water, where the blue drops from pale turquoise to something that looks almost bottomless. The boat cuts the engine. We slip in. Within seconds, 8 to 10 black-tip reef sharks appear below us, circling the boat in slow, steady loops. They don't seem to mind that we're there. But every now and then, one peels off and swims directly at you, and at the last moment, changes direction and glides right alongside you. I am completely mesmerized. I am also the last one back into the boat. From there, we ride back inside the lagoon into an area of shallow, crystal clear water for snorkeling. What's down there stops us cold. Enormous, brilliantly colored giant clams. And schools of tropical fish in colors that don't look like they belong in nature. Our day ends at a small semi-private sandbar for lunch. At first we think we're eating on the upper deck. Then they point us downstairs. Below us, sitting in the water, picnic tables. We look at each other. We sit down. Our feet drop into the lagoon, and we wonder why this is where lunch happens. Then we feel it. Something soft, gliding along our legs, folding against our feet. Stingrays, large ones, their wings pressed right against us, begging for scraps. Small tropical fish dart in and out between our ankles, and just a few feet away, black-tip reef sharks circle in slow, steady loops. The same sharks we were in the water with that morning, now joining us for lunch. Eating a barbecue lunch with your feet in the Pacific Ocean. This is simply what lunch looks like on a Tuesday, on a sandbar off Bora Bora. Back at the resort, as the sun goes down, torches light the walking paths, and the sound of drums carries out across the water. A show of traditional Tahitian dance and music right on the property. Watching it live, with the lagoon glowing faintly behind the performers. It isn't filler between courses. It's the islands putting their own rhythm on display for a few minutes. By the time we packed up and headed back to the airstrip, we saw a side of French Polynesia most travelers never slow down long enough to find. We learned exactly what it takes to physically get here. We found the real weekend life of these islands, surrounded by families instead of tourists. And we learned that skipping the world-famous Overwater bungalow can get you a better trip not a lesser one. Every one of those moments came from doing the opposite of what the guidebooks push you toward. But we'd only seen half the story, because hundreds of miles further out in the open Pacific, past the last volcanic peak of Bora Bora, the islands stopped looking like islands at all. No mountains, no rainforest, just a paper-thin ring of coral, sitting a few feet above sea level, large enough to swallow the entire island of Tahiti. That's the Tuamotu Archipelago. That's Rangiora. And how anyone builds a life out there, on a strip of coral barely above the waterline, with no volcano to shelter them and no mountain to catch the rain, is a completely different story. It's a story about a landscape that shouldn't really support life at all, and the people who built one there anyway. That's next.